Good afternoon or good morning, depending on whether you're at. My name is James Fauntleroy, and you are watching the JB Font channel. It is so good to see all of you here with me today. I would just like to say good morning. Well, it's 1:07 in the afternoon here, but just to let you guys know that the JB Font Show is available on all major podcast platforms like Anchor, Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, so you can subscribe there. Excuse me. I'm also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can find me on the JB Show on Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and on RBN throughout the week. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you like what you're hearing. And if you are new to the channel, I want you to take that beautiful, beautiful thumb or finger or click the mouse, that cute little mouse that you have, and press the subscribe button along with the notification bell so that you know whenever we go live, because you know that the YouTube algorithm doesn't like us. And also, if you do, I might give you cookies. Who knows? If I can get them through the screen, I definitely would, right? I want to give a shout out to all my patrons on Patreon and Coffee, as you can see in the Chiron, scrolling down below. Thank you all so much for your contributions, as well as having your faith in me, to be able to talk about these issues. And it really does mean a lot. So it also proverbially and literally keeps the lights on. So thank you so much. I want to give a shout out to all the people who are watching me also, not just on YouTube, but also on Twitch, as well as Rumble. I got it out of my head for a second. And if you guys are not subscribed to me either on Twitch or Rumble, then please make sure to subscribe there. I want to say hello to everybody in the chat. Just one big hello. I also want to get to my guest. My guest today is Delilah Barrios. She is the gubernatorial candidate for Texas. Miss Delilah, so wonderful to have you. And it is great. And also, you are my first candidate ever to be on my channel to talk.
Well, that is a hell of an honor, and thank you so much for having me on. I always enjoy talking to you. Yeah, thank you for the time, and I'm excited. I'm excited to be your first candidate. I'm not the only governor candidate, but I hopefully I'm the only one you'll consider voting for if you live in Texas.
You're the only one I'll consider. Unless there's somebody who has the same policies that are outside of the duopoly, no, you're the only one. But I just want to let everybody know that, of course, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and there's a lot of people who are very concerned about the different issues that have been raised, especially within the last few weeks. I would like to get to those, and also if you have some comments about what was said today, please make sure to put them down in the comment section below as well. So my first question for you, Miss Delilah, and this is really just more of a surface question, but what is the main driver for you that caused you to decide to run for governor?
Yeah, that's probably one of the easiest questions for me to answer, because I've lived here my whole life, and I've been my experience is a lot like a lot of other people's, and I was poor a lot, and we didn't have the same quality of life expectations that other classes did. And it wasn't obvious to me until I moved up a little bit, kind of mid-class. And when I lived in Austin, I just saw the differences, and especially working in the medical field, it's so clear. You can see the differences in how people's quality of life changes depending on how much money they make. And that's something that I want to do. I feel like we're denying our children futures at this point. Everybody who's a climate change denial person is against your children having a future. And all of these people, they have these platforms, they have the money, they have the funding, they come to your neighborhood, they say, oh, they sell you hopes and dreams, and then they forget about you. And you're stuck in the same systems of oppression that you always have been. And it's seeming, people are unwilling to at least speak truth to the problems that we're facing. A lot of it has to do with capitalism, but it's not just that. There's growing social and wealth inequality. And I kind of just got tired of going to court, and protesting pipelines and protesting for abortion rights because it was falling on deaf ears. So that's why I decided to run, because myself, my people, my community, my family, we need representation. We need somebody who's going to be honest, at least, about what's happening and truthful about what they're willing to actually do.
Well, what, and I mean, to be honest with you, you're really also representing someone of your class, right? I mean, how many people who typically run in these races come from well-off families? I mean,
Right.
I mean, look at, a lot of the governors who have ran in a lot of these states. I mean, for instance, I mean, you had Rick Scott, who basically was a millionaire here in Florida. You had George W. Bush, who was a governor, and he was, son of the president, as well as the grandson of Prescott Bush, who also, they had a lot of money, especially in oil. You have people like J.B. Pritzker back in Illinois, who is a Democrat, is also a billionaire. So, can you give us a little bit of that that background as far as your class, like what industry you're in and things like that?
Yeah, sure. I'm not middle class. I'm definitely poor working class.
Okay.
Like most of us. I've worked in healthcare for 18 years. I'm a surgical tech, so we're there. Most of our patients are under, well, right? Like you're under anesthesia. You're very. It's one of the most vulnerable things to experience, having to go in
Yes.
for surgery. And I really felt a calling to be there, as a patient advocate, as somebody who's there to learn and to grow and to offer assistance.
Yeah.
So financially, I mean, I've got 3 kids, and it was for a very long time. I was like the only one paying the bills and things. Like my partner was going to school and things like that. It's not uncommon. Normally, it's hard to manage all that by yourself. And then when you have kids, it's I don't know if you're familiar, but they're very expensive. Like it's not easy. And yeah, so um I think I mean, if you looked at my tax returns, you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, she's right here.
Tax returns. What are those? I'm so poor I couldn't even file one. Man, I know. Trust me, I know.
Yeah, no, you can
Yeah,
look at like my campaign
yeah.
contributions and all that, and like we have to file everything ourselves, and I'm not above the law. Like I have to do everything by the book. Like anything I do wrong, you know what I mean? It could be a threat to kicking me off the ballot, and so it's really hard to compete with these people who have like endless amounts of money to just spend on things. They don't have to worry about the same problem. Like they're kind of shielded from the problems of people like you and me. Because like I had a healthcare problem. I had to go to the hospital a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like, oh my God, it's going to cost so much. You know what I mean? And like, these are people that I work with and I love and respect, but I'm just like, it's going to cost so much. Like, I don't want to go get care unless like I absolutely have to. And that's most of us. I mean, even some of the doctors are like, they don't want to go to the hospital if they don't have
Really?
to. Healthcare workers are the worst patients. To anybody that offends, I'm sorry, but that's been my experience.
Wow.
Just
Okay.
because we're like, because it's expensive. It's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody knows
And
that.
and you know what's coming too. Like if because and you're in that field. And I guess it's kind of like me because I've been on dialysis for 15 years now. And
Mhm.
so it's like going to the hospital to me is like going to a Holiday Inn. It's like I know what's about to happen. I know exactly what to expect. And it's just
Yeah.
like okay. And it's funny because I'll sit down and they start taking my vitals and they'll ask me, are you in any pain? I said, no nausea, vomiting, shortness of breath, chest pains, no falls, no new medications, no, you know, you know, uh, no recent, medical events. This is what's going on. And I'll even give them give it to them by the medical terms, and then they'll be like, all right, well, then they leave. It's just like, well, you did our job for us. We don't have to ask all these, And I was like, what are your medications? I'm on this and this many milligrams, this and this many milligrams, this and this milligrams, and I take this how many times a day? It's a lot, but it's kind of funny how that you talk about that, because that's actually going to be one of my questions about healthcare. So I know that's kind of in the forefront of your mind because that's also your profession that you're in. My next question would be, and I think that might be part of it, but what is the top 3 policies that would be your first priority to implement as governor, either through legislation or executive order?
I call it Medicare for all y'all, and I just really, you know what I mean? Basically, everyone is covered. It'll be a statewide single payer system,
Okay.
so everybody, and eventually, it'll help make sure that these events, like going to the emergency room for a lack of preventative care and things like that, are, hopefully non-existent anymore. My main goal is to just see people cared for fairly, and I think that no matter what kind of insurance you have in this state, everybody that I talk to is for it because they know in the end it's going to save more money and it'll save more lives, and that's really what we all care about. So that's my top priority. I also have UBI and a higher living wage. Basically, we spend millions, potentially billions of dollars subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. So those funds are, in my mind, being absolutely wasted. So I would like to reallocate those funds to making sure that people who do have at least a $20 an hour living wage or UBI, because I know a lot of people who have chronic illness and are on disability, and that shouldn't be a poverty sentence for you, right?
Yeah.
Because you're sick, that shouldn't be a poverty sentence. You should have the same standard of life and quality of care as everybody else should. So that's my second. That's kind of lumped together. And then third is legal recreational marijuana. And we're going to actually update because we think that anything that has medicinal value should be decriminalized and legalized. So we're going to expand on that because it's necessary. But yeah, those are the top 3. I've got more on the website, but most of it is me and like 2 or 3 other people, like going over, making sure that edits are right and things look good. But yeah, I mean, we're a small operation, but that doesn't mean we're not dedicated,
Of course. Yeah. So your top priorities are going to be healthcare, a universal basic income, and my goodness, my brain I just had a brain fart.
The weed.
And weed, so basically cannabis legalization, which actually kind of goes in tandem with healthcare as well.
And criminal justice reform too.
Yes, criminal justice reform as well.
And healthcare ties into patient rights, which is also something that we have lost in this state due to our current governor.
Yeah, who has been a vast disappointment, as far as, the people of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott. I mean, he is, you even have, liberals coming up to him and screaming at him during press conferences now. He's not the best, I should say.
No, no. And that's why, he's not our best and brightest. He doesn't speak for all of us, he's a bigot, and I don't mean that as just like I'm picking on the guy. I like he is very backwards in his thinking and unwilling to grow or be, what I'm saying, better. So there's not a whole lot you can do with him, in my mind.
But some people would say he's more of a traditionalist. What would you say to that?
Like traditional as far as white supremacy or limiting people's basic human rights, that kind of tradition? Yeah, that's not my tradition.
Yeah, as a Black queer guy, there's some traditions that deserve to go away, and so those are some of the ones that I'm actually willing to just toss to the side. But yeah, you know,
Who could blame you?
yeah. Well,
Most of the
yeah.
gay people that I know in this state get married somewhere else because they're like, we really don't want to deal with it. You know what I mean? We don't
Hmm.
want to deal with the all of the like. They're
Hmm.
so it's so politicized, and
Hmm.
people are just like so angry all the time, and I'm just like, but you're completely avoiding the root
Hmm.
systemic problems on a continual basis, and I'm tired of hearing that.
Yeah, yeah,
So.
I got you. I because you talked about UBI, one of the things that I wanted to go on to my third question is on jobs. This is
Mhm.
something that's on the mind of a lot of people, especially here in the United States. We just came through a massive pandemic. Over 1 million people have passed away, died during the pandemic, really because I think of government negligence, but that's an entirely different conversation. But according to the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics, Texas has an unemployment rate of 4.3%. How would you respond to people who say that the rate of unemployment is already good? It can't get that much better than this.
I mean, that sounds pretty weak. I think, Texas is full of a lot of hard workers. I
Hmm.
mean, I know a lot of people who have multiple jobs. Just because the rate is down doesn't mean the quality of living is up, right?
Ah,
'Cause we have a lot of people employed, but do they have healthcare? Do they have a clean environment to raise their children in? Do they have public transportation so they can get where they need to go? I mean, we're not even addressing the fuel crisis or anything like that. And who whoever's patting themselves on the back right now, you need to stop. We are not anywhere. Most people understand that we could be doing a lot better, and we should be.
mhm.
So yeah, just because the employment rate's down doesn't mean that people are doing well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great response. Uh, I live in Florida, so you know, I basically live in Texas, but with alligators and less cowboys. So, uh, yeah. Plus, the people can be a little bit more ridiculous. But
Mhm.
one of the things that it tripped me out because, of course, some people know that I'm trying to move because our rent is jumping, and so within the area, my mother stopped by another apartment complex about a block from here, and their rent is literally their place is no is not as their place is either at the same level of quality as ours or lower,
Mhm.
and they're literally charging $1,000 more than what I pay right now.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, that face exactly.
No, I don't. I mean, listen, I got lucky. You know what I'm saying? We're lucky
Yeah.
that we own a home and we have a mortgage to pay because I don't even know. You know what I'm saying? Like I used to. Just quick side story. I always showed I was like, oh yeah, Chris Farley's great because I always thought he was really funny, and I showed my kids about him, and so we were like, that's the dream, living in a van down by the river because it's getting so bad. Like my eldest has already seen two recessions, two housing crises. Like
Yeah.
we're not, and what are you really paying for? What's the value of just basic shelter? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Hmm.
And it's just a basic human need that everybody has, and we keep people trapped in these unfair economic systems and then expect them to just keep contributing. And why? How? It doesn't work like that.
Hmm.
And people want to blame homelessness on the individuals instead of the systems that make this possible.
Hmm.
Why? I don't understand.
Well, I mean the homelessness rate. This figure has been touted by many people over and over, but I think number one, it's higher. Number two, they don't account for people who are living in hotels and on couches. But there's 500,000 people sleeping out on the streets. People who are houseless, I also count people who also have to live in hotels. I'm sorry, motels.
Okay.
People who also have to sleep on others' couches and things like that. I also count them. So the homelessness rate is actually significantly higher in my estimated view. But uh, with things like at the interim, with things like a statewide rent control, if I'm not exactly sure if Texas actually has one, but would that be something that would be on the table as well? Or
I think it'd
strengthening
be
rent control?
necessary. This trend that we are on right now is just
Mhm,
simply unsustainable. There's
mhm,
no way that this is going to last. You know what I'm saying? That people
mhm,
cannot handle. Listen, in '08, I was a new mom, and
mhm.
my parents lost their place, and they had to stay with me in a one-bedroom apartment. And that's just because
Wow.
it happened so quickly. And everybody can tell this is the trajectory is unsafe at the
Mhm.
very least. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think some sort of rent control. I think some sort of just we need better housing. We don't need like vouchers. We don't need like tax write-offs. Like we need housing for people. They need to
Mhm.
be safe. You know, I think it's a responsible thing to do. We do have a lot of gentrification, especially in places like Austin, where we also have a fairly high homeless population too. And it's
Mhm.
just like, we have all these like office buildings and places that are not being used. You know what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't make any sense. That's why, we're all about eco-socialism. Like there has to be a balance somewhere. There has to be
Yeah.
some sort of balance that is sustainable. Anybody
Mhm.
arguing against that is just a liar because that's the only
Yeah.
way to save, you know,
Yeah.
to protect the future for anybody, not just
But
our
Delilah,
generations.
yeah, but Delilah, all you got to do is work hard and just get a really good education, and then you're fine, right?
Yeah. No. I mean, come on. There's a lot of people with master's degrees that are having to work at Starbucks and places like that. And then I hate that stigma where like, oh, it's unskilled labor. I'll tell you what's unskilled labor, sitting down all day, letting other people make money for you. That's unskilled. Anybody could actually do that. You're the ones that are leeching off the rest of us. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not here to be friends to billionaires at all. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. And yeah, I think that a lot of working class Texans will look at, especially a lot of these people who um, make all this money and then they get subsidies from the government, whether
oh,
either
yeah.
the Texas government or the United States government, and they look at them and go, "Well, wait a minute, I'm basically damn near homeless, and this guy's already making millions of dollars off of oil here in Texas, and yet he's getting more from the government instead of me. Like what sense does that make? And then I'm not making that much at my job, and so I'm struggling to get by, having to work two and three jobs just to survive. So you have a lot of people who are working class in Texas who are really feeling the pinch. And yet you have a lot of people who are super wealthy who and some of these people who are super wealthy came from California,
Right.
because now they're saying, well, they don't want it's easier, you can keep more of your taxes and things like that in Texas. But at the same time, what something that I think that a lot of people don't realize is when the government does do something right, those taxes can actually go to pay for something worthy, right?
Instead of in the form of like PPE loans for people who don't need them or things like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Things like that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
No, and then that's the thing. I think that right now people are actually getting to a place where they're like, wait a minute, hang on, that doesn't work for me. No, and I'm all about empowerment. I'm all
Mhm.
about empowerment. That's why as a Green Party candidate, we talk a lot about direct democracy because we know that that's really going to be more impactful than
Mhm.
just, like we're a political party, yes, but we also understand because we came from the same classes and come from the same working class people that that's the best way. Like you have to go show up at people's offices and bother them and tell
Mhm.
them what your needs are. You have to leave voicemails, you have to write letters, you have to protest. And at this point, everybody's just like, we're in a good place to actually kind of coalesce our power right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I wish people wouldn't have this mindset that, you're only limited to your power through your vote. Like that's just one method for you to use. And I support all of them. you know,
Mhm.
like, yes, I'm running for office, but also like, what are you doing this weekend? You want me to come hang out with you and you know what I'm saying? Like protest the pipelines or talk to Greg Abbott or sit outside the mansion and just you know what I'm saying? Where's the accountability that we were promised anyway? It's been 2 years.
Yeah.
I kind of
So
knew, right? Like I knew in 2020, I was like, I don't like this trend. I'm honestly never, most people that are close to me are like, I wouldn't have expected you to do that, but I'm so glad you are. And it's just because, we all have to do what we can. I mean, I'm a little bit limited, but this was something that was available to me. And it's so important.
yeah.
Anyway, it's important to be involved. And I know that it's a struggle because a lot of people are struggling, but it is still important to be involved in one way or another.
Mhm. So my next question has to do with education. So according to US News, Texas is currently number 34 out of 50 for education. What are some of the prescriptions that you would administer to raise the level of education in Texas?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of funding. I The whole zip code thing where like you only donate to your school is weird to me. I don't think that that's a appropriate way to kind of really invest in our youth like we all say we're supposed to. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's really important that pre-K through 12 and beyond is free. It's free to the students because
Mhm.
they're supposed to be paving the way forward, right? We're supposed to invest in them. That's the only way we can actually invest in them is by giving them free education. And I don't understand why these enterprises are kind of preying on young people with college loans and student debt. So I want to do
Mhm.
whatever I can to help that because it's clearly not enough. They want us to work full time, but they don't want us to pay. People can't afford childcare. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Not a lot of people can. And if they want people to work and be dedicated workers, they need to offer something. So, yeah, your kids should be able to go to school. There should be plenty of services after school. There should be plenty of times. And even our structured learning environment doesn't really work for all the kids. So my son had special needs when he was in second and third grade.
Mhm.
And at one point, they cut funding to the services that him and all of the other students in that grade needed. And it
Mhm.
actually directly delayed his learning for about 2 years. We had to catch him back up because at one point, somebody in the line decided we're not going to spend that money where it's supposed to. And who cares about those students? And it
Yeah.
wasn't until the public started, calling them out for what they did that there was some tiny bit of accountability and services were restored. But that's the problem is there's no accountability for these people that get elected to office to actually serve the people. And I'm
Yeah.
tired of that. I know a lot of people are.
Yeah. It's kind of an anecdotal example, but when I was in my sophomore year, we were recruited by a magnet high school to go there to learn a trade. I decided to go to that magnet high school and learn commercial foods and culinary arts in that school. I had friends who went for digital publishing, some went for EMT paramedic, some went for auto bodies, some went for welding, different ones.
Yeah.
And so, because of that, during my junior and senior year, I was able to get trained in that trade and go straight into the industry out of high school, and I could circumvent college.
Yeah.
And I think 1 year after I graduated was the last year that they had that program. And then they cut funding. And so that magnet high school ceased to exist.
Right. And
And
how many
so,
generations are denied that path because of that
mhm,
decision?
yeah,
That's
definitely.
awful.
And one of my friend at the time, his younger sister was going to go because her two older siblings went.
Right.
In fact, he went for plumbing, and he did new plumbing on brand new homes.
Okay.
And at the age of 19, he was able to buy his own home at 19.
That's that's what we want, right? You know?
Yeah, yeah. And she couldn't go to that school anymore because it was over. So, and then you touched on a part where, about funding. There's a lot of schools that, and we talk about this a lot with Sabby Sabs because she is in education. Excuse me. She was explaining about how a lot of schools receive funding through property taxes. And so different areas have different levels of property tax depending on how, affluent the area is.
Yes.
And so if it's a poorer area, then that means the school is going to have more or less funding. That being said, then that means the quality of education is also going to be lower. So these kids are going to suffer based on, a property tax. Whereas my question to you is, how could we change that so that there is a blanket, equal, equitable range of education throughout the state of Texas?
Yeah, I would suggest doing a constitutional amendment to grant every citizen equal opportunity to education and services like that, training.
Hmm.
And that's how it should be, but we can enforce it. You know what I'm saying? We have the ability to do that.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I know people that are wealthy are like, what do we do about all these systemic problems? You address them with your money. That's how you fix them. You want this town to be beautiful and fun and hip. You have to put your money where your mouth is. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't get to just reap the benefits without having to pay into
Hmm.
the systems that make sure everybody benefits. You know,
Yeah.
I don't like this whole competition Hunger Games lifestyle. Like
Yeah.
your kid's
Yeah.
gonna get into a school, but this kid's never gonna get a chance to try.
Yeah, that's true. And when you say free education, there are many who are going to watch this program and say, well, nothing is free.
Mm.
What do you mean by free education? I just want that the clarification for the audience.
Yeah, you should not have to go into debt for the rest of your life for furthering your education.
Hmm.
Simply.
Yeah.
There's plenty of money going to the wrong things that we can play with. I am not trying to enact a state tax on people. That is not my angle. I'm saying we spend a lot of money on the things that don't help our communities. We need to
Okay.
fix that. Yeah, because I don't want to lessen people's rights. I, as a woman in this state, especially a woman of color, know
Mhm.
exactly what it's like to not have their rights. So I
Yes.
understand when people don't want to lose more of them. I get that. And so that's not our angle. Our angle is to actually make the government work the way it's supposed to in this state. I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but Greg Abbott denied um, COVID funding. He's like, nah, and he just turned it away. And it's like, well, what happened to it? Where did that money go? You know what I'm saying? Like you say you didn't accept it, but am I supposed to believe that considering your behavior? No. So
Mm,
I'm only one person. I can only read so many articles every week, to keep up to date on everything. So I mean, yeah. I think that there should be trade programs and all kinds of things to help people be more independent. I think
mhm.
everybody deserves that right?
Yeah. So from what I'm gathering is you're basically saying that you think that education throughout should be free at the point of service, treating college, especially like you do high school, as far as funding is concerned. Is that correct?
Yeah, for instance, a lot of the doctors, when they are doing their training, it's kind of like a work program, right? They have to continue their training there. And that means they're giving so many hours of labor to the hospital, services offered, things like that. And it's
Hmm.
not unfair. Like they usually are able to, I mean, a lot of them have debt, a lot of debt. I know, and that's hard. But we don't want more debt for more people. We want to lessen that, right? And we want to make sure that other people have different types of opportunities. There's so much that needs to be done. We don't even have decent public transportation in our state. We don't
Mm.
have enough renewable sources of energy in our state. There's a lot of work to be done, and it can be done in a way that's equitable, you know?
Yeah, and if you're talking about also doing things that are more sustainable, that means taking, especially different parts of Texas that are, in a sense, concrete jungles, and turning them back into more of a lush green infrastructure that Texas used to have. You're basically like the people who like to hunt and fish and camp and things like that. You're basically trying to create more opportunities for them to do what they like, right?
I
So
mean,
that.
in a way, we have a lot of private landowners in Texas, and I'm so proud of that, but it's hard, and it gets harder and harder every year for them to absorb the cost of maintenance and all the things that it takes to keep. So we need to incentivize more of that. We need more farmers. We need more
Mhm,
workers. We need people. Yeah, everybody should have access to free, or not free food, but healthy food.
mhm.
I mean, concrete jungles, food deserts shouldn't be a thing, especially in a state like this. We have no lack of resources, honestly. We just have a lack of priority with those resources.
Like a priority. Okay. Now, this next question is going to be within your wheelhouse. Okay, healthcare.
Mhm.
So healthcare is definitely a massive issue, being that we are in a pandemic. And you said you are a surgical tech by profession.
Mhm.
According to the comptroller of Texas, in 2019, the state had an uninsured rate of 18.4%, which was twice the national average. What can be done for Texans to have more widespread healthcare?
Yeah, again, with the resources, we've had some hospitals close down. People in rural communities are forced to drive a far distance to get care that they need.
Mhm,
So in my mind, saving cost with a program that like Medicare for All or statewide single payer would make sure that there's enough services to go around. If it's
mhm,
not all focused on profits, it'll be focused
mhm.
on actual wellness and healthcare.
Gotcha.
We're one of the most underinsured and uninsured states. I mean, I actually know some nurses who are like, I don't have health insurance right now. And they work here. And that's just a loss they took. You know what I'm saying? They're like, it's complicated and expensive. So as long as I'm covered, I mean, I love these people. I love all of the people. I know that they're hard workers. I know they're dedicated. I know they love their families, but none of this is good for you in the long run. And however it needs to be, I'm not trying to make myself some money on this campaign. I'm trying to empower you to demand better for yourself as a citizen. These are basic human needs that are not being met.
Yeah.
It's not that hard when you really look at it. And so yeah, a statewide single payer would save people money. It would help
Mhm,
everybody get the care that they need. I need to see a specialist. I have to wait 2.5 months to see a specialist, and I have decent health care.
mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
not working, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's kind of like the part about education that I think is good to implement is something that also creating a financial incentive to create more general practitioners, have them going to school, and maybe taking, instead of those subsidies going to oil, those subsidies can go towards education for more general practitioners, more
Hmm.
techs, more nurses to have within the state. And then also implementing a single payer system would also, and then also giving incentives for them to move out into rural areas
Yeah.
Maybe subsidies for rural doctors, nurse practitioners, people like that, to go out into these areas so that the people in these areas as well can be well taken care of health wise, with health being free at the point of service. I mean, honestly, a healthy Texas is a happy Texas.
Right. Yeah,
Health, and
it's
we
not.
talk about mental health care too, but that's been in the news a lot this week.
Oh,
So,
yeah, they conflate violence with mental health issues, but they don't want to talk about poverty. You know?
very true. That
Yeah,
is,
no, I know doctors that have been like, I can't afford to live here. I have to move. Good doctors. And they're leaving and they have to find, you know what I mean? They have to pay for their kids' education. They have to pay for childcare and they need to be able to keep a home. And honestly, if you don't like, you have to actually be here and talk to people here and kind of to get an understanding. Like, I think everybody's at a place where they're very concerned. They're very
yeah.
concerned about the trajectory, especially working in healthcare. You notice trends, and you know what I'm saying? Like, you'll see people coming into the ER. You'll see them needing emergency surgery for things that could have been prevented. If they had just kept on their medicine or kept on, you know what I'm saying? And it's just unfortunate that nobody has been willing to do what's necessary to make that not happen anymore. I mean, even ACA was not enough. It was barely enough. It was like a Mitt Romney plan, right? I mean, and it had
Yeah.
many flaws. So
Mhm.
this is the only solution, is to
Mhm.
really tackle it head on, with the priority that it deserves.
Mhm. Well, I mean, the ACA, aka Romney Care, aka Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, was really just a massive financial giveaway to the insurance companies
Yep.
that, throughout the United States. And these companies, their job is to pull money out of your pocket and deny you the services that they said that they will pay for.
Right.
That's really the business model of them. Government, instead of basically making it a single payer system, would get rid of that profit incentive so that it actually just pays for your healthcare and it spreads it out throughout. Now, I, for one, think that single payer healthcare is in the right direction. I would rather see it, completely nationalized, but that's my personal opinion. But
Sure.
even still, a single payer system is basically something that makes sure that people, who are on the lowest rungs of society have the same equal and equitable health care as somebody who is uber rich.
Hmm.
So I think that that's something that people really need to take into account, and every single time, you look at your hospital bills, think about Delilah for Texas and think about, you know, I could, if I have somebody like her fighting for me, then, as well as, you know, supporting whenever we protest about our health care, then I at least have somebody that's going to, try to help me to make sure that I can take these bills and throw them in the trash because I will no longer need them. I will
Yeah.
no longer need to pay them,
Right. And
so
there's a lot of money, and I think a lot of people are worried about job security too,
mhm,
and then that's just a fear tactic from right wing people saying, trying to scare you from having a system that works for you, because it's not. I think healthcare is actually one of those things that does bring all classes together, because we're all kind of stuck in this system that isn't perfect. And you know what I'm saying? And it's there's obvious flaws that we're noticing. I think no matter how much money you have, you're still going to be exposed to the systems that make you drive to this hospital versus another one, or you know what I'm saying? I think
yeah,
that is one of the most. It definitely gives you humility being a patient, and all of us are patients at one
yeah,
point. All of us need
yeah,
care.
mhm,
We should make it good for everyone. That's the only way to make it good. You know what I mean? That's the only way to make sure that you're getting
Yeah.
what you need, is making it fair for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, unless you were born in the woods and have lived in the woods your entire life, you have been a patient at one time or another.
Or will need to be one. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's gotta, something's gotta give. We gotta do something
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of doing something better, this actually goes into my next question. This is going to be a tough question, but I think that is necessary. It's tough as far as the emotional aspect of it. But recently in Uvalde, Texas, has undergone an immense tragedy at Robb Elementary School, and it has, which was, a mass shooter had murdered children and teachers. Public safety is keen on the minds of many Texans, and even people like Beto O'Rourke expressed taking guns away famously a couple years back during a presidential debate. What do you see as the primary issue, and how can we strengthen public safety without encroaching upon Second Amendment rights of Texans?
I am a big supporter of community police. I've seen the police down in Austin behave very disrespectfully. We have a bad history in Texas of people in these professions using their power.
Mhm,
So I think that the best way to head that is to have community polices. I think that their budgets are inflated.
mhm,
40%, I think, of Uvalde's city budget went towards the police. They had everything they needed,
mhm,
everything and more they needed to try and
mhm,
do their basic job, and they
mhm,
failed to do so.
mhm,
So that is that's my uh I just keep going back to that because a lot of parents and community members would have gone in themselves if they had been allowed to, but
yeah,
they were prevented from it by the police. And I think that that directly caused more loss of life.
mhm.
And the way to prevent
It's
that.
interesting. Well, I mean, looking at the Supreme Court, they have actually had precedent set that the police actually do not have a duty to protect you at all
That's true.
constitutionally. So, with that being said, a lot of people are now questioning the the validity or the purpose of police. If they do not have a constitutional duty to protect you, then why do they exist? And what under you know is for instance arming teachers or adding more cops, is that an answer to the problem, or is that in your view treating the symptom?
Exactly. You're just putting a band-aid on a wound that needs care. And that's the situation. Austin did defund their police, and they were able to use the money for services to get people
Mm,
off the streets and house people and things like that. I know when you say things like, "Oh, you have to defund the police," people have this like, "Oh, what are you saying?" Like anytime we talk about anti-war policies, people are like, "Oh, you don't care about our veterans?" No, I love our veterans so much. I want them to stop dying for capitalism. Like,
mm,
I love our community so much. I want them to be functional and not vulnerable to the failures of the police that take a lot of your budget.
mm,
Because it's been hard. I have children, and we've talked a lot about this. And everybody wants to know, like, why, and they want to make excuses. Oh, this guy, he's crazy. Oh, this. But at the end of the day, I'm so glad that the community filmed what was happening and reported on what was happening. If it weren't for
yeah.
independent media, would we have even known the entire story? I don't know. I don't know that that's true. And that's part of what I feel, that there's some complicity on both the police department, but also the people who are selling these things. I mean, shouldn't there be a limit to how much you can buy at one go? Probably. And the fact that they are not held responsible or accountable for the things that happen is because a lot of these politicians take money from the NRA and the gun lobbyists and things like that. But just because the gun lobby is fighting for you to not have rights and fighting for policies that don't benefit you doesn't mean that you as a community cannot arm yourself and make sure that you feel safe. Because no, I don't think that we should have more guns in schools. I think that's like the opposite of helpful at this moment. But I do think having a strong community police presence would help. I mean, anybody could be involved. Anybody can monitor. Anybody can drive around. Anybody can take classes on how to be, smart and careful with their firearms. My focus is that I think that that's more of a help, because that also forces people to talk to each other more. That also forces you to, you know what I mean? Like, look out for kids that aren't yours. Like the neighborhood that I live in, we all watch each other's kids because it was the most natural thing to do. Like, oh, your kid can come over after school. Oh, and we all do it. And it was very natural. And anybody saying that something like a community police is a reactionary thing to do is lying to you. It's a very healthy thing for you to do. And it's very healthy for you to be involved directly with your community. I think there's some ways to kind of limit the ability to profit off of these sort of disasters and absolute just complete failures of our society on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really think that people need to evaluate what the role of the police are, and evaluate, whether or not you think it's fair that they don't do even the bare minimum to protect you. And it's our job to, take care of ourselves. Most people who are poor know that already.
Yeah. And there was an interesting conversation that I had with Franco on Frank Analysis. It was a panel with myself, Robert Durden, Savvy Sabs, and Glory Jones. And we were basically talking about the mass shooting issue that's going on within this country. It's been going on for well over 20 years now. And so, one of the things that we harped on was that these issues that we're having are more of a systemic issue that has an underlying systemic problem that's not being addressed.
Yes.
Because a lot of people either, you have mass shooters who, are white supremacists, who, like for instance, the one in South Carolina, Dylan Roof, who went into a church and murdered Black people, or the recent one in Buffalo, who, decided to kill Black people, mostly Black people, in, a supermarket in Buffalo, or the one in, Uvalde, Texas, who clearly had some issues. People, don't address these systemic issues to these problems, especially regarding things like healthcare, housing, because a lot of people who are radicalized, especially within the spaces of white supremacy, a lot of times what I noticed is that they are radicalized typically because of their life being degraded by the ultra wealthy, and then they're being told that it is people who have more melanin in their skin that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so if your life is, if the material conditions of your life are better, then you really don't feel that pain, and then you don't really feel the need to blame people. Now, it's not going to be everybody, because there are some people who just have it deep within their hearts and they're too far gone. But there are some people who fall into that, who think that, well, this is the reason why we're going through so much, crap right now, is because of these people, versus the people who are telling them this are the ones that are actually causing the problems. The oligarchs within this country, the people who are, the ultra wealthy, the people who are giving away the subsidies to the fossil fuel and the tech billionaires and people like that. So, I mean, what would your, do you agree that there is this systemic issue that could be alleviated with the policies that you said that you were advocating for? Like, would there be a I don't want to use the word deletion, but there will be a diminishing of this violence that we see by, alleviating some of these systemic issues?
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point where people don't have the incentive to look at the root problems because they're shielded from suffering from these problems. Myself and my family are not, and people in my community are not. A lot of us are brown. There have been multiple targets against Black and brown communities in this state, and let's not beat around the bush. This country is founded on colonialism and capitalism, and it is not working out very well for a lot of us.
No.
And you can say, oh, assault rifle ban is the answer, but you're not actually on the ground exposed to the violence that a lot of people are. And a lot of that violence comes from lack of compassion in our systems. We criminalize people who are hurt and who need care. People who are addicted, they have drug issues, or like I don't remember the guy's name because I don't want to, but the one who went into that elementary school and killed all those people. I mean, he was a high school dropout. He had his own issues. They were unaddressed for how long?
Yeah.
And the worse it gets for, Black and brown and poor and working class people, the more these things are going to keep happening as we're noticing. All of these things, I'm personally blame Joe Biden for a lot of the things that are happening right now in the country. He does not address the root causes, and he has no reason to. And people just say, oh, well, he's only had 2 years, or oh, he's done this and he's done that. But none of us has seen our lives getting better under this administration. And that's the truth of it. A lot of these root issues can be solved through a lens of socialism if you're not too scared to actually look into what that means.
Yeah. Be brave, people. We're still alive.
I know. I've always been that person. People like you. I was like talking to Sabby, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I get hate mail because I'm pro reproductive rights." And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I do. What are you talking about? You don't get up here and start telling people that they deserve rights and that healthcare is a human right and trans rights are human rights without making some people mad and uncomfortable. And I don't care. That they need to be uncomfortable. We've all been uncomfortable long enough. It's time for you to have your fair share of being uncomfortable too."
But here's the crazy part, though. We're the people who do the hating. We're all part of the same class, and they're being screwed too.
Exactly.
That's something that it's like hold on, wait a minute. You are against trans rights, yet 99.9% of all these trans people are working class or even poor, like you and me. Yep. And by the way, they have existed for millennia.
Yeah, centuries.
They're not going anywhere.
They didn't show up because Alex Jones had a problem.
I'm not going anywhere. Look, guess what? Even if you get rid of me, your kid's going to be queer.
Oh,
look, you can't get rid of us.
Right? I gotta send you a meme later. You're gonna love it.
Oh, okay. I'm looking forward to that. But here's the thing. Let's focus on building everybody up at the same time.
That's what community is. That is what community means. Yeah. We don't have to agree on every single point, but we need to care about each other. And that is not too hard. Most of the people in this state are decent people. And they would help somebody. They would change your tire. They would loan you money. Like most of us are like that. And we're not, you know what I'm saying? It's always irritated me. They're like, oh, you're in a red state. You don't care. I love Stephen King's books. I hate that man politically. Do you understand? Because so many times he's like, oh, well, maybe if y'all had voted blue, you wouldn't be freezing to death in your homes. And it's like, I'm so disgusted with this faction of politics that takes these tragedies and uses them to prop up their candidates. That is disgusting and needs to stop. Like every time I get money, I go to somebody's community, I fill up their community fridge, or I you know what I'm saying? We have events that are owned by independent people, like Black and brown business owners. Like that's how it's supposed to be. I don't care about this. Like we're right, we're better than you. We know what's best for you, but we're not going to listen to you. I'm sick of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, and you know, people may not want to agree with me on all of my policy points or my considerations, but you should at least know I do care about you, even if you don't like me. I want you to have basic human rights.
Yeah.
That should
Yeah.
be what the bar is.
I mean, you're basically speaking about the integrity of the issue. I mean, like for instance, there are some people who really hate my guts. I still
You're
want you
so
to have
nice.
healthcare. I still want you to have healthcare, though.
I know, and you're so nice that you're like, still
Thank
don't
you.
want you to suffer, even if you're a bigot. Like, you
Yeah,
know, just
because
because Greg
the thing,
Abbott tried to kick kids off of CHIP doesn't mean I want him to not have health insurance.
yeah,
You know?
because the thing is that maybe, just maybe, he will see the value of healthcare for everybody, and then we can have a conversation, and maybe I can move you from that. But I don't want you to hurt, and I don't want you to die. You know
Right.
what I mean? I want you to be healthy so that we can have this conversation. So then you can move and say, "Man, I was just wrong in this position." You know, but at the same time, you know, it's about loving humanity, right?
I think so. And I don't think it's a stretch. You know, I think there are just too
Yeah,
many people invested in denying people what they need.
yeah,
That's
definitely.
really a lot of the problem. I mean, we've got a lot of wealthy people. People love bringing their business over here so they can exploit the low taxes and they can exploit the low wages. That's not right.
Yeah, as well as the immigrants too. They want to exploit
Yeah.
the people who travel here either through refugees or the people who come here to try to seek a better life. They also get exploited in this country too.
And let's not forget, so I'm also a member of GPACs, but it's a Green Party thing. But we often talk about how climate change is, and the military industrial complex is a direct cause of migration. Like everybody just wants to blame the individuals that are trying to just survive without
Hmm.
understanding that you're funding their homes destruction actively. You should talk
Yep.
about it. You should look into it. You know what I'm saying? Like we're told, you know, like, oh, it's the individual's fault. Actually, if you really want to point fingers, let's look at the prison industrial complex. Let's look at the military industrial complex, who profits off of caging people rather than housing them or providing for them or letting them have a job. Oh, we're pro worker, really? A lot of these people would love to have a job, but you spent your money caging them instead and profiting off of their misery. That doesn't make me a bad person just because I'm speaking truth to it.
Yeah. And how much money do you guys spend just to keep these people in cages versus actually employing them, paying them a living wage, and then they end up paying taxes within the state and actually helping your economy instead? It's actually, you get a better ROI of just helping, immigrants to blend into society and help uplift our community than caging them, right? You
Yeah.
know,
And you
and
talk
this
about
actually,
blending, but I mean, this is colonized land, so
it is,
you
it
know,
is.
you
It
wouldn't.
is. Let
Everybody,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm like, my theory on
yeah.
racist people is that they can't handle the actual temperature and the fire of the food, and that's why they're mad. They resent not being able to enjoy the things that, you know what I'm saying? 'Cause that's the only, I have to laugh about it, you know, because it's a thing. It's like
She
clearly
is
you're
laughing.
lacking somewhere. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my hypothesis situation. No, it's
So,
not it's not that hard to care about other people. You know, it's
it's
not going to
not.
cost you a damn thing to be nice.
Yeah. But you know what? You actually gave a great segue into my next question. So, my next question, has to deal with immigration. So, the United States was in shock. Um, as we saw how the immigrants coming from places like Guatemala, Honduras, and many other Central and South American countries were treated at the border under the Trump administration. As we have observed, not much has changed under the Biden administration. What do you think our approach to immigrants, especially refugees coming to the United States, should be? And what would you recommend President Biden do regarding ICE?
My recommendations for Biden are that he just retire. that's recommendation. I don't think you can teach old dogs like him new tricks. I don't think he's ever going to understand or be in a position to really. He's not the man to meet this moment. Everybody, despite your politics, could probably acknowledge that fact. You know, I think what you're bringing up is the Title 42 exemptions that Trump administration used COVID to deny people immigration status or naturalization paperwork to the U.S. And Biden did the exact same thing. So on the news, you saw all these rangers and people on horses whipping immigrants from Haiti and other places. And one of my hopes, if I was elected as governor, you know, Texas, like, we're supposed to be the friendship state. Like, that's our motto. I don't know if you knew that. It's our motto.
I didn't know, but it's good to know.
It doesn't seem like it. But I mean, a lot of people here are good, and they're good people. They care. And so ideally, we would be good neighbors with our bordering country. And we would have, you know what I'm saying? We would have people working over here. We would send people over there to work. Our education systems would be benefit to them too. It's not a stretch to just look at some of the problems and be like, we could do better. We could do better. You know, imagine if we set up some sort of system, you know, to speed up the process of immigration and immigrants so that they could start working quickly. Like, imagine if you had somebody versus caging them and separating them from their family. In 6 months' time, we're out in the workforce. You know what I'm saying? Using our public transportation, paying taxes, being involved. Like, that is what it's really about. We have such a sense of individuality that we forget that we alone cannot accomplish much by ourselves. Even if you can pull yourself up by the bootstraps, that doesn't mean you're not going to have, you know, some healthcare problem from working too hard. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean that you're going to be able to retire. I mean, all of us are kind of trapped in these systems that don't work for us. So let's make them work for everyone, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I really want to be able to. We get a lot of our produce and beef from Mexico, and it's always been that way. So I don't know if you remember, but back when Katrina hit, the Mexican Guard came across to help. And it's why can't we do things like that for each other? With climate change, we're only going to see more and more disasters, floods. You know what I'm saying? Droughts, things like that. We really need to be smart about how we go forward. It's time. It's past time to do those things. You know, everybody needs to eat. Everybody needs clean water. It doesn't need to be this unfair. Sorry.
Yeah, your sound kind of went down a little bit. I'm not exactly sure if it's. I
don't know. Maybe I scooted away. Can you hear me okay now?
I can still hear you, but it's not as full of sound as it was before. But I can still hear you clearly, though. I hope everybody can still hear in the chat. If you guys can't hear, just let me know in the chat. But just, you know, say so. But one of the things that I was thinking about, and I'm sure you found out about this already, is President AMLO of Texas is actually trying to nationalize the lithium industry in Texas. I'm sorry, in Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that it can also be a great relationship between Texas and Mexico regarding, you know, different industries. And I'm not the best person to quote when it comes to how, you know, Europe operates when regarding their borders. But from what I've observed, it sounds like, for instance, if you want to go, it's more of a free flowing, you know, border. Like, for instance, if you want to go between France, Germany, you know, Holland.
On a train.
Yeah.
So
And I don't think that they have as many border issues as, we do here in the United States. So it's like, why do we have these issues, whereas you have other Western nations that basically, have a lot more free flow in their borders between other countries, and people, like, for instance, someone, can work in France and then take that train back to the UK,
yeah,
it's just
it
so
works both ways. It's a symbiotic
yeah.
relationship, right? You've got labor, you've got workers, you've got like it all works together because it's both are invested. Both
Hmm.
are invested in making sure that the services, for instance, with the Roe v. Wade overturning. And, keep in mind, we haven't had abortion rights in the state for a long time, since last year. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, you want to talk about it now? And I'm like, could we have talked about it before? But I'll talk about it now. A lot of people would go across the border for healthcare needs because even as an American, you have a better option across the border to get the services that you need. Um, so further privatization of things is the wrong direction. Going towards the national system is better. Publicly owned utilities and things like that is better overall, because you're really have to be smart about how you allocate things. I don't I think, when I was a kid, we would go across the border, we'd go shopping, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe you'd go to the dentist and that was more affordable than, trying to wait several months to get the care you needed in the States or, not having health insurance. Not everybody wants to have health insurance, but I think everybody needs it. I mean,
Hmm.
that's just one flaw in our system. There's so many flaws. I don't even
Hmm.
have a policy plan for all of them because there's so many, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at least viewing it as in the scope of we do have the solutions for these problems is a benefit because instead of being like, well, I don't want to pay more in taxes, we're not trying to make you pay more in taxes. We're trying to get some of these, people with their hands out for corporate welfare to take a seat. That's really it, you know?
Yeah, I got you. I'm going to move on to my last question here.
Mhm.
And this has to do with people who basically look like us. So, my last question is, in the 2020 census, the population of Black people in Texas was 3.4 million, or 12% of the population. Regarding the systemic racism and white supremacy we face along with our own brown brethren, how can we produce a more equal and equitable Texas for people who look like us?
Yeah, that desperately needs to be addressed. How would it look to even the playing field for people like you and me?
Hmm.
Um, again, I really do support, defunding these systems that don't work. I think we should abolish ICE in its entirety because I think
Okay.
it causes more harm. There's a lot of harm that's caused from that department.
Hmm.
I'm not saying I want people to not have jobs, but I'm saying that their focus should be more towards, humanity and what we need. You think about like the generational wealth gap, you think about the I mean, I still know a lot of like first college grads. I'm the first in my family to go to college and get a master's degree. I'm the first in my family. And why is that? How many hurdles did you have to jump to get to that point? And that's the thing is we need to even the playing field so that everybody has the same rights and opportunities as everybody else does. We like to think that that's how it is in this country, but it's not.
Hmm.
People like you and me already know that, right? Like I I had to take a path that was going to get me income that I could depend on. I had to take a path that was going to afford me independence versus having somebody pay for me to travel and learn. Not everybody's afforded those same rights. So systemically, we need to do so much just to even guarantee people are having their basic needs met. And I would like to hope that things like, having healthcare, saving you money on that, and having, more public transportation, and having a higher living wage would be all the things that we need to do. We talk about reparations a lot, and Green Party has had that on their platform for a really long time. We're one of the first political parties to embrace that. But how does that look? How does that look for like a state candidate? How does that look for a governor election? You know what I'm saying? How can we make it like, is it a check that you need, or is it something, do you need your rent capped? Like, how are we going to address that? And I imagine there's multiple ways to do that. But if, it looks different depending on who you ask. And so as somebody who would be elected to office, it would be my duty to see what you want. How does this transform into direct policy to you that affects your life in a way that helps you and your family? And that's something that we really need to look at, because we are a little bit limited. I took this path because the governor has all of this authority. Usually they divert to the states, and I imagine they didn't want that to work for somebody like me that would try to make democracy work for the people that live there. It's all geared towards profits and things like that, but I'm more worried about the future. I'm more worried about generations beyond ours that are going to be, we're already being denied. We can't keep it up. So how do we make it work for people? I don't know. I don't know 100%, but I know that it needs to be done. I know that we need to do whatever we can to help make it actually fair for everybody that lives here, because it's not like that right now. And I can at least acknowledge that it is not fair for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's so much going on right now. One of the things that I want to do is, and I'm gonna share my screen really quick, is if you guys would like to um, do any contributions to Delilah, um, you can go to her website. It's delilahfortexas.com. It basically talks about just a little bit of a snapshot of um, her platform, but her platform is really, I'm sorry, your platform is really reflective of the Green Party platform,
Mhm.
which the Green Party platform is pretty comprehensive, if I do say so myself. Let me share my screen again. So it also at the top directs you to the Green Party platform. This actually talks about many different types of policies. Um, like, for instance, even political reform talks about abolishing the electoral college, ranked choice voting. It talks about, um, statehood for DC, which is something that I don't think I've ever really thought about myself. So that's something to actually think about. Um, and then you go into, for instance, the social justice parts, especially regarding healthcare, immigration, and labor. um, so you talk about, and you touched on this about single payer healthcare, because you believe that healthcare is a right, not a privilege. And so I also put these links in the description as well, because I think these are very important, so to have these discussions. And look, and I understand there's a lot of people who also have some issues regarding the Green Party, right? uh, and I'm sure that those things are being worked on or addressed. If they aren't, then of course they need to. But at the same time, that is, what about the candidates and how they are, their prescription for alleviating the issues that we see within our country, and seeing that their platform, I don't even wouldn't really want to use the word progressive because it's been co-opted so much.
Right.
but it truly is a position that uplifts the worker instead of the exploiter, instead of the ultra rich, which we noticed that the duopoly has been doing. And a lot of people will say, well, there are many, Democrats that are running that have great policies. And unfortunately, as we notice, is that once somebody goes into the Democratic Party, they kind of lose that chutzpah. They lose that, their teeth are ground down. They're declawed, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, O'Rourke endorsed Biden, and right before our primary, and it shows you, kind of how easily you lose your power and your voice when you're backing the Democratic establishment.
Yeah.
To me, that just proved like you're not really working for the people. You're not worried about the people's best interest, and that a lot of times, especially the media, is a bit complicit in uplifting these voices so that they can just fall upwards. And, the people like myself who have to work and struggle, and I mean, I've got bills to pay and I have a full-time job. We're not trying to exploit people who are already vulnerable. I mean, that shows like a lack of morals, in my opinion. And and yeah, I can speak to my party's failures, and I wouldn't lie about that. You know what I'm saying? There's things that we do need to work on,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not quiet about it at all. If you ask some of the other grade people, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, we know about her." I think that we need to do as much as we can, and some people have reservations about whether or not we can be the party to meet this moment, but I believe we are, and I believe we have that capability. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and how many people voted for Jill Stein in 2016? I mean, she was literally on the ballot in 45 states, and I think she was a write-in for I think three or four other states. So she pretty much had almost the entirety of the United States covered.
Yeah.
And and a lot of people loved the platform because it was such a worker and poor people centric platform, to the point where they try to keep her out of the debates.
Hmm.
You know,
Even
um,
now, she's facing legal battles. They want her to pay back $175,000 or something like that. And she's in court at this moment. Like it's been an ongoing thing.
mhm,
And they punish people. You know what I'm saying? Giving people an option, and that should just highlight for most of us that it's corrupt. The system is
mhm,
corrupt. You know?
yeah, 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 and it and
Yeah.
also people who talk about, well, the Democratic Party is doing what they can for democracy, and it's like, if the Democratic Party is doing what they can for democracy, then why are they making it harder for third parties to get on the ballot?
Yeah, they tried to kick people off the ballot in Texas. And not only that, I mean, why is Pelosi backing anti-abortion Democrats? I
Hmm.
mean, come on. And then they're barely willing to speak, you know what I'm saying, on the problems there within. I mean,
Hmm.
O'Rourke didn't endorse Cisneros. Like we're not even on the same party ticket. And I'm like, people are like, hey, do you care if I vote for her? And I'm like, yeah, you should probably vote for her. So like, you know what I'm saying? It's important, for you to vote for your values. You don't
Yeah,
owe anybody that.
yeah,
That's your voice. Use it how you want to.
hmm,
But they're complicit, because they ignore the underlying issues.
hmm,
They're like,
yeah,
oh, we're gonna tear down Robb Elementary, and it's like before an investigation. Really? You know what I'm saying? Like that's the elementary school in Uvalde, and the community is
yeah,
very upset. And honestly, a lot of us are still hurting by what happened because this isn't normal. This shouldn't be normalized.
hmm,
And this isn't a talking point for your
yeah,
agenda. You know, there are things that we can do though, and community members can hold people accountable, and they should. That's your right. That's part of what we support is direct democracy. You have power. There are more of us than there are of them. And if they're not going to work for us, they shouldn't have their jobs. Most of us that don't do our jobs get fired. You know, I mean, that's just how it is. So why is any other institution above that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And so, I think this is, one of the reasons why I think that people who are in Texas need to know that there's always a third option. I think we're constantly being told that there's only two options. And the two options are are either die by fire or die by drowning. And it's like, well, I choose the option to not die at all.
Right. Right.
And then here comes the third option, but it's almost like you go to the store and you have these two horrible products to purchase. But then you look way in the back of the shelf, and you're like, but what about that? And they're like, no, yeah, we don't want that. And it's like, but it's the better product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but and one of the things that I actually want to say this, and anybody can clip this, post it on Twitter. I don't care. To the people who have larger platforms, I'm talking to you, Crystal and Kyle and friends. I'm talking to you, Breaking Points. I'm talking to you, Mike Figueredo. I'm talking to you, David Dole. I'm talking to you. Hell, I'm talking to you, TYT. I'm talking to all of you. Is your dedication to a party or to a policy? That's the question. If your dedication is to a policy, look right here. Single-payer healthcare. Want to decriminalize marijuana. Has reparations, on their platform. Wanting to abolish ICE. All these different things. If you're somebody that's working class, wanting to raise, the living standards, making sure that you will never go homeless ever again, trying to make it so that you can have a living wage no matter where you work, making sure that you have a planet. Yeah. Like all these different things, it's like if your dedication is to a policy and not a party, have Delilah on. Go ahead, do it. Do it. Put your money where your mouth is, because the thing is that a lot of people are not willing to do something, and then and please miss me with the but the Greens aren't just that popular. You have millions of subscribers, millions collectively. Make them popular. Make people like Delilah, make people who are in independent parties, make them a household name. Make them. Because the thing is, if Beto O'Rourke could be a household name, Delilah can definitely be a household name. You know what I mean? Especially in Texas households. So the thing is that my thing is, if you truly care about democracy, you don't just care about the two parties. You care about everybody that wants to make democracy better, right? That's basically what I want to say.
That's the thing, though. You say you support democracy, you fight for democracy. Then why don't you think people should have choices? Why don't you think people's needs should be addressed? Why are you beholden to the corporate establishment and the financial interests that are denying so many people their basic human needs? Mm-hmm. That is what, to me, if we're not popular, it's because we're not getting paid to say things that don't make any damn sense. Mm-hmm. We're not being paid to say, oh, wait till, this year, wait till the election, no, we're not like that. You know what I'm saying? We're the ones that are like, what's your concern? I mean, anybody can get involved in a state party and have their voices heard at least. Everybody deserves representation. We don't even have fair elections here. That is a statewide race. Mm-hmm. Everybody who's like, she can't win. Yes, I can. People can speak up for them damn selves, okay? and they should. And my last name Barrios translates to neighborhood. Okay, so I'm from your community. I care about your people. We are all the same. I do not owe anybody. I didn't make any promises to any corporations. I'm not friends with Elon Musk. I am not here to pander to the wealthy billionaire class. I'm here to fight for the rights that we all need, we all deserve. And I know that that's revolutionary, but so is love.
Yeah.
So that's what we're here for, And thank you for sharing your platform, because a lot of people are scared to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, and plus you're a huge advocate, and you practice what you preach regarding direct action. And so I would like to see more people who run for, especially a lot of local offices, use the direct action tool to push for these policies outside of the government while they're still running, so that they can push for it. Even if they're not successful in that way, they're successful on the outside front. And so I think that is the best thing to do. And look, I'll even put it out there here this way. I don't care if you're a Democrat running in Texas. If you're running like for a state seat, or if you're running for Senate or House, and you see her policies, Delilah Barrios' policies, that are better than anybody else who in the Democratic Party, I honestly think that, yeah, it may be a little bit of a political suicide to endorse her, but I honestly think it'll be great to even say, well, you know what? We're not in the same party, but her policies are top notch. Because the thing is that here's my question: are you loyal to a party, or are you loyal to a policy?
Are you loyal to the people?
Are you loyal
or are you loyal to the establishment?
Yeah.
Because that is the line in the sand.
Yeah.
If you're telling us to hold our nose again, you're telling people, oh, we just have to turn the state a specific color so their needs can be ignored further. No, you're not dedicated to the people. You're dedicated to the establishment. You're dedicated to making money with the establishment, which means you've turned your back on the rest of us. That's how I see it. That's why I'm running, because I was like, there's no way. There's no way. This is why people don't vote. They feel like nobody cares about their needs.
And thank you so much for coming on. I want to express my appreciation for you willing to come on my tiny little channel. And I appreciate.
Oh my God, I love you. You're great. Anytime. I'm so happy you have your own show.
Thank you. Be sure to also, if you guys can, follow Delilah also on Twitter. I also have that also in the description as well. If you guys have any questions for her, you guys can always direct them to her. She's quite active on Twitter, and talking to the people as always. So yeah, thank you so much. And I will be continuing on just for a little bit, but I appreciate you coming on, Miss Delilah, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Okay, I hope you have a good day. I appreciate you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye, take care.
Okay, so that was a great conversation. I'm quite happy to have it. And there's also more independent, as well as third party people that I would like to have on, especially a lot of ones who are local. So people who are going for city council, comptroller, I don't care, dog catcher, I don't care. If they have great policies, as well as trying to couple that with a heavy hand in direct action, then yeah, I'm definitely down to talk to them. Because the thing is that number one, we're going to save us by doing what was done in the past by being heavy on direct action. Number two, uh, having a strategy of putting more voices out there that are outside of duopoly that actually want uh, something even better than what the two parties try to offer us. At least they're there so that we can say, okay, but this person has something way better. And even if that person doesn't win, if enough people get behind them, then it can actually move, things, further to the left and less authoritarian um, in that respect. So that's one of the reasons why I also wanted to have, her on. I'm also trying to get other independent and third party people who are particularly anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, and anti-white supremacy, anti-colonialist, if they can. Um, Shout out to all my fellow members of RBN who, we had a third party summit. Gosh, has it been over a month and a half ago? Something like that. But yeah, so, I want to reach out to all of them as well as more people and talk to people who, ran in these parties in the past. People, like Dr. Jill Stein, people like Ralph Nader, Cynthia McKinney. I would love to have conversations with them. Ajimo Baraka. I would love to have these conversations with them as well because it can give you an insight into what the machine is like and running in these areas, but also it can also give us more of a scope of different ideas. You may have somebody that's thinking about running. Maybe I don't know. They could be running for city council, but they could give them guidance through one of these interviews. People like Shama Sawant, you know, um, which I can't wait to have on to talk about these things, to increase these little victories so that we can make a big punch as far as the material conditions of poor and working people. I think that's I think that's something that I really want to do. So yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna be going to the chat really quick. Um, yeah, Margaret Kimberly. Auntie Margaret. I'm gonna start calling her Auntie Margaret, man, because she is a sweetheart. She's brilliant and she's kind, you know. And then she's cool with my homie, Danny Haifong, which I think, Danny, if you're watching, I need you to come on here. I need you to come on here because number one, you're a brilliant, brilliant man, and number two, I need some education, especially in regards to some foreign policy, and I need to pick your brain. Also, while I'm at it, I want to get people from the gray zone here, people like Max Blumenthal and Aaron Monte as well, because the thing is that I don't think that journalists like them, people like Margaret Kimberly, people like Chris Hedges, people like Danny Haifong, I don't think that they truly get enough of the the presence, as they should, because these are very brilliant people. People like Ronnie Akalik. I want them to have a larger voice because we have too many imperialist, war-loving journalists that acquiesce to the military-industrial complex, to U.S. foreign policy that actually degrades the world. And so the people who are anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, you know, anti-colonial, these are the ones who I want to talk to and use my platform to kind of be more like a bullhorn, to go out there and say, look, these companies, they're lying to you because they basically have a financial incentive to degrade these people in other nations, to degrade the people in this nation. That's one of the people who I actually want to have. So people from the Gray Zone, people from Black Agenda Report, they get it, and they studied the history behind it, and they can actually give you a good background into, like, for instance, why should Black people care about foreign policy? Like, how many of us that are Black actually talk about foreign policy that much? And I think foreign policy should also be a Black issue, because many of the people who watch me right now that are Black, they care. You care about foreign policy because you realize this is also an issue. Like, for instance, you care about what's going on with the Palestinians because you know that the Israeli Defense Force trains our police officers, and then the police officers use that training on us. This is why we care about foreign policy, because you see what's going on abroad and how it directly affect or indirectly affects us here at home. So, I want to kind of push that out there a little bit more. And one of the people who actually influenced me to do this more is actually Nick from RBN. And I saw him earlier in the chat. Shout out to you, Nick. But I think that that's something that should be more implemented, especially for those of us in the Black community. You know. So good to see everybody here in the chat, all the usuals. And I'm sorry I didn't get to do my usual introduction this morning. Well, this afternoon, but I wanted to make sure I got to all my questions, which I was able to do it because it was a conversation, and I know we didn't get to touch on everything as deeply as I wanted to, but at least you get somewhat of a surface level of information about what her prescriptions are for the state of Texas, which means that what if somebody who is like one of us wants to run in, I don't know, Rhode Island? What if somebody wants to run in Illinois that's like us, that wants to be independent? Or what if somebody in, I don't know, Nevada that wants to run? So, I mean, if that's the case, then hell, let's get behind them. If they don't want to be part of the duopoly and they're, anti-imperialist and anti-capitalist, then let's go. Let's talk about these things, because the thing is that people have been screwed left and right for too long, by both parties. And from what we've observed, especially from people like Joe Biden, is that he is cut from the same cloth as Trump. I mean, what's the typical saying that we're on Reagan's 11th term, basically. We're on Ronald Reagan's 11th term because every single president that we've had since him has been a variant of Ronald Reagan. We've had Black variants. We've had Texas variants. We've we've had Arkansas variants of Ronald Reagan. We've had variants of Ronald Reagan that expressed, that they are down with the queer community, even though it's rhetorical and not without any substance. You'll have ones that are variants of Reagan that express that they're down with the Black community, but then they're willing to, bail out the banks and let black wealth tank. You have ones that say that they're with the forgotten man, right? And that they wanted to make America great again. And yet they continue to do the exact same things as their predecessors. You have one that says that he wants to return to soul of America, bring back the soul of America. But what he doesn't tell you is he wants to bring back the white supremacist soul, the anti-woman soul. He wants to bring back the anti-worker soul of America. He wants to bring that back. I mean, he appeals to the modern day Rockefellers and Rothschilds and Carnegies. Yeah, they actually have more in common with him than they do with any one of us. So yeah, I I'm tired, and I know you are too. Hell, you know, how does your heart feel every single time you have to pay your rent? Every single time I look at my bank account and I see that that withdrawal, oh, it hurts here, right here. It's like, all that money for this place, and just a few years ago, it was way less. I can't take it. Every single time you're thinking about, man, I can go for some barbecue right now. I want to go to the grocery store, maybe get a nice rack of ribs, maybe get some corn on the cob, maybe make a few shish kebabs. But then when you go to the store and you look at the price, you're like, it used to be so much cheaper just 3 years ago. What happened? Every single time you go to the doctor, and then you realize, oh, that'll be $50 for your copay. I can't take it. It hurts. Every single time you hear about mass shooting, you hold your heart and hurt. Every single time you look at our education system and you realize that our children are being underserved, you hold your heart in pain. Every single time you see somebody standing out on the street corner with a cardboard sign saying homeless will work for food, God bless, you hold your heart in pain. Every single time you look at your paycheck and you realize that your money just doesn't go as further as it used to, and you hold your heart in pain because back in the day, in our parents' and our grandparents' time, they used to be able to survive off of one income. And then you realize that the system that we're in, every single bit of this pain is by design. Every single bit of this pain is intentional by the powers that be. Because they got pissed off during the 50s and 60s. Because they saw that people were living a little bit better. Even though there were still people suffering, there was a large amount of people that were living better, especially a lot of white people. They were living better. So a lot of these people who are super rich were like, you know what? They got a little too much now. So we have to take more from them. And that's the way capitalism operates, is that it doesn't see an end in sight to its greed. And so it makes cuts. It makes price cuts. Makes your real estate prices go up a little bit more, and they make the gas prices rise a little bit, and then they make the food prices rise a little bit because they gotta keep that profit margin on the up and up. We have to make more this year than we did last year, because if we don't, then, well, we just have to make more. But that's the cycle, man. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why we always talk about direct action. We talk about getting these people out of the way, having more of a direct democracy. Hell, I say stop making the United States a constitutional republic and make it a direct democracy. But is that a little too much? Well, fuck it. I don't care. But yeah, so Bill Bradley. And you're speaking my language. There's a reason why I like you, Bill. But that's on the right trajectory. I just want the workers to own, basically all the industries collectively and just do that. I want democracy in the workplace. Who else is in here? Hey, Robin. Yep. I like pickles, but not that kind of pickle. Wait, hold on. Did I just say what I thought? I didn't mean it to sound like that. Or did I? Oh. Oh, Lord. What the hell was in that drink? Wabakin says we have to organize an alternative financial system under bottom-up popular control. Yeah, so the great man himself, Roger Meadows, which I can't wait till I'm on Rockfin because he has so many great takes. But Roger Meadows has been talking about public banking. And from what I remember, I think we used to have public banking in the United States. It was under the United States Postal Service. We had postal banking. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the thing is that actually is a great way so that people are not subject to the predatory practices of these private banks. And so that's something that I would love to see more of, is number one, bring back public. And I think public banking from the United States Postal Service ended in the 60s. The early 60s, if I'm correct. I got to look that up, but I think I remember reading about that. But it's things like that. Like, publicly owned banks again, right? So, things like that. Who else did I see? Gamer's in the chat. So good to see you, Gamer. All right. I said hello. Let me see. And Jean Catherine the Great. So good to see you. Unions have not failed in Costa Rica. They make the country what it is. Actually, could be this way in the U.S. as well. Yeah. More unionization is good, but unionization is to me, unionization is the pit stop to worker ownership. But yeah. Hello, Violin. So good to see you. Says Bank of North Dakota is a public bank, only one in the United States. Yes, that's what Roger Meadows was talking about, that the North Dakota Bank. And I mean, the fact is that they actually it helps. What he explained was that it helps create a surplus. In fact, Jimmy Dore last night was actually talking to Peter Schiff. I think Peter Schiff's a libertarian. But anyways, Roger Meadows actually left a comment on Rockfin talking about the Bank of North Dakota, talking about how they actually built a surplus in North Dakota because of it being a public bank. And so I think that's something that I need to look more deeper into ballot initiatives to see about trying to push more public banking, because public banking, honestly, even people who may be conservative would probably be game for it, because they're like, well, that would give us a surplus, which means that we can actually pay for a lot of the things that people want, the public services. I mean, and I'm not talking about the upper echelon people. I'm talking about, no, the regular people, the working people, who are, or poor people, like, like us. They would care more about public banking, because they're not out to make a profit. You know what I mean? So, let me see. Ocam the Bold says Peter is a gold bug. His father died in jail for refusing to pay tax. Damn, I didn't know that. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Who else is in the chat? Violence says FDIC rules changed after 2008. Now your deposits can be seized. You're last in line. Ugh. Yikes. Yeah. CBC voter is in the chat. Good to see you as well. I'm making up for when I didn't get to do this earlier, because I wanted to get to all my questions with Miss Delilah. But, Violence says everyone hates the banks. Glenn Ford, rest in power. Yes, rest in power, Mr. Glenn Ford. But yes, everybody hates the banks. I would love to see Amazon become a gigantic worker co-op. I would love that. Yo, you know what? I want to see Amazon become a worker co-op. I want to see Apple become a worker co-op. If Apple became a worker co-op, and here's the reason why I say that. Because there is this culture around Apple, right? And so that culture could breed into, if you're not in a worker co-op, you ain't cool. Let's make worker co-ops cool. Let's make worker-owned companies cool. Like, and there was a we were reacting to RBN Live on Tuesday, and CJ, we were reacting to a video by Second Thought. By the way, shout out to you, JT, from Second Thought. Great videos. I highly recommend that you actually subscribe to his channel. But he was talking about workers owning worker-owned businesses, something to that effect. But he was talking about how there was a was it a sandwich shop or a pizza shop, and the boss decided to, instead of pocketing the surplus labor, the surplus value of the labor that the workers were doing, he decided for one day just to pay every one of his workers the profits from what they produced from the sales of that day, and it equated to, I think, $71 an hour. So imagine, instead of all the money going up to the top, imagine it being distributed, because everybody put their blood, sweat, and tears into that business through their work, and they were able to get their surplus value, their surplus wages from the labor that they produce back into their pockets. Just imagine that. I think it's something that I would love to see, especially in Apple, because I mean their prices are extremely inflated, but they typically have this this culture of Apple only, and I'm just like, okay, well, how about you translate that to worker co-ops, and hey, you're off to the races. So, yeah. All right. So we are approaching at my cutoff time, and oh, by the way, hang on 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Don't leave. Don't leave. Don't leave. Before you click out the video, I forgot this. I forgot it. But I'm going to be doing a recording of chapter 1 of Dirty Truths by Michael Parenti on this channel. So I will be doing that. And so if you guys would like to hear that, then great. I'm going to be doing that as well because I am diving into theory myself. And I want to learn more about, what I want to practice. So that's what I'll be doing. So if you guys would like to hear that, I'm going to try to put it out either tonight or tomorrow. But hey, I've always wanted to be a narrator anyway. So this is my opportunity to do it. So anyways, I just want to thank all of you for joining me today. Listen out for me next week on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as per usual. And we'll be talking about different things like that. I want you to take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Water yourselves, water your plants, leave the world better than you found them. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. And kind people are my kind of people. Yeah, so just make sure to express kindness wherever you go. Forehead kisses. All right, I love you. Mwah, every single one of y'all. Y'all are beautiful. Just look at yourselves. Look at yourselves in the mirror. Ain't y'all beautiful? Have a lovely day. On the road again.